Just because we can put the camera anywhere doesn't mean we should. Recently, I got the opportunity to direct a commercial for Celsius, and I'm gonna take you guys with me on set, break down my process, and also share what I learned along the way. My name is Mullins. I'm a commercial director and filmmaker, and I spent the last decade exploring every part of the creative process. Now, with any production, you have a handful of constraints, whether that be your resources, your time, your budget. These constraints aren't just limitations, but actually one of the best parts about any project, right? Allowing us to grow, innovate, create new ideas, and learn new skills. The prompt Celsius gave us for this shoot was, hey, we have this existing footage from some of our other campaigns, and we want to expand the world. We want to do a studio shoot showing the Essentials cans, which is kind of like their larger product lines, which is like the bigger Celsius can. And so as the director, it's my job to communicate that with the client, go back and go, okay, what can we actually make out of what we have? When you're looking at any production, the first thing I think about is, okay, what is our objective? What are we actually trying to accomplish here? So our objective is to film the beautiful product shots in studio and also capture footage to integrate VFX transitions into the footage they already have. When I think about how to actually pull this off, this looked like a one-day shoot in studio, lighting team. We have a bolt arm, being able to get these really dynamic motions. Going into this, I've never worked with a bolt arm before. I've never created some of these things in VFX before, but I'll show you guys how I'm doing it, what I'm thinking about, because it's all just about being resourceful. It's about just figuring out what problem to solve and solving it. One of the most important parts of pre-production for any project is pulling inspiration. I went and tried to find different frames on FrameSet. Do we want to live really close to the product? Some of the more creative decisions, like things that we would actually do in camera. Do we use a probe lens to make the can feel super big? We're trying to lean into the brand elements that Celsius already has. You know, we're not trying to do something entirely new. We're just trying to take what they've already built and just make it bigger, better, and feel authentic to them. You know, we can put a Celsius can in a studio, we can light it, we can make it look pretty. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about how do we actually get motions that are intentional, that feel unique, and aren't bland, right? It's like you don't want these just super linear movements that you could capture on a gimbal or a slider. They already gave us a couple different scenes of footage to work with. One of them being boxing footage with Jake Paul. So he's in the gym boxing, he takes a sip of Celsius, but for this commercial, they want us to use the Essentials line. And then also we have some NIL football players, and there's this other shot where he opens up a cooler. And so I'm thinking, okay, what if we utilized a cooler in some way, right? Taking the props that are already in there and then just finding a creative way to flip the script and show their newer product instead of the older one. And then this other clip that really captivated me was this FPV dive into fireworks at a festival. I'm thinking about these, letting them marinate, going, okay, maybe how could I combine these with my inspirations in some way? Something I used to think about when flying FPV, sometimes the motion of FPV or drones falling through the sky seems really cool. Of course it's gonna look cool when you're diving off of a mountain, but it's not always necessary. I think the best FPV pilots are intentional, and I think the same thing goes for VFX. You can put a camera anywhere in the world, but it begs the question, why? Why am I actually putting this camera somewhere? And we have the same challenge here. When it comes to motion and 3D and trying to plan things out, I always like to think, where are we going? How can we just be unapologetic, going from here to there? You know, I pulled a bunch of inspiration, but a few things really stood out. I love this liquid swirl. I love how organic this feels. And I kind of imagine, what if instead of this liquid kind of looking like Coke or Pepsi, that it was actually more blue? In back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what if we're going into a can, going into the top of it, and then this motion is also pairing up with the FPV dive. And so in my head, I'm thinking, well, what if we could go up over the can, just like an FPV shot, go into the top of the can, get the liquid swirling into the fireworks shot? What an insane thing to be thinking. But it's possible. I'm looking for what's all the same motion. How can we kind of just flow through this scene and do it unapologetically? You just want to feel like it's one fluid experience. And so the same thing with some of this footage from the Jake Paul shoot. I'm thinking, what are kind of moments where we're moving into something or pushing through something where we have an opportunity to move into the next shot in some type of way. Another really great reference I found was actually this push through this USB-C slot. I love this kind of probe angle, getting to feel your way through the shot and finding something new. And so in my head, I'm thinking, well, what if we're just coming from the back of the fridge, right? We kind of have to cheat everything because we're not working with Jake Paul in the studio. But what if we have the fridge that he opens and all of a sudden we're pushing through the back of the fridge and someone grabs the new Celsius can? A lot going on, but all very, very possible. When it comes to actually planning this out, there's a lot of communication that's involved. Talking with the art department. Where do we actually get a fridge for these things? Where do we actually find a cooler that matches the one from the footage they gave us? All of these elements of continuity really play a part when it comes to selling this as this is an extension of the world that we already have. Now, what that looks like for me is coordinating with the art department, saying, hey, this is what we want to do. Here's the style of fridge. You wouldn't even believe. It's like, do you want a big fridge? Do you want a small fridge? Do you want a sports fridge? Like all of these decisions as a director, you have to be certain on. You have to go, no, this is actually what I want. I actually want this kind of sports fridge with 3 layers, and I want, big enough to put multiple cans inside of. I don't want just like a fridge you would find in your kitchen. And this specificity is so important. It's like, okay, I want this type of Yeti cooler. I want all of these different cans in the studio laid out a very specific way. And for me, what takes the pressure off is really doing your due diligence in pre-production. Thinking about what are we actually going to be seeing, and then having a conversation with the DP. We brought on Ben for this one. We shot a Lego commercial like right before the shoot, and it was like, dude, let's just keep it rolling, go right into the next week and have you on for this one. He brought his Alexa 35 package out. I just thought, this is perfect. We're gonna shoot on the open gate format. Basically, from there, you communicate all of this with the producer and you go, hey, here's all the shots that we want to get. Here's the things that I know everyone's going to be happy. Client's going to be happy. Agency's going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. We're good to go. And we put all of these on a production sheet. So the producer will go in and time out everything for the day. The AD kind of keeps us on track throughout the day. From here, my favorite part, actually being on set and putting your ideas to the test. Are your ideas good? Are they actually being communicated clearly? Here we are on set. We've got a lot of moving parts going on today. Dylan's making sure everyone is coordinated. We've got Brad here, who's representing Celsius on the shoot today. We're currently just setting up, so we've got art department running circles outside, just getting all the props ready, and lighting department's in here, our gaffer. So there's a lot of moving parts, but at this point on set, I always just want to take a deep breath because we've done so much prep to even get to today. The whole goal right now is to get to our first shot.
Like nothing super high, just a really subtle tilt. Yeah.
One thing I didn't really account for today was the bolt arm having to be calibrated between every lens change, so that kind of flipped our schedule around a lot. Inside of our schedule, I worked in some additional shots that would be nice to have, and I kind of used those as a buffer in case we need to cut things out, because we only have the crew on set for a certain amount of hours, and after that we have to let them go.
Beautiful.
A little bit of an aside, like the director on set makes the final call ultimately. There were a few shots on set where everyone we spent an absurd amount of time, like 20-30 minutes actually getting this lighting dialed and all these things, and I'm looking at the movement on the monitor and it's just not it. I'm just not feeling it. There's so many other shots that would be better if we spend our time on as opposed to trying to dial this one thing. And so I'm always trying to think in the back of my mind, don't fall into the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you spent time on it doesn't make it valuable. I'm here to make sure this team does a successful job, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't look great and I can't see the shot in the edit, we're gonna move on. So we're setting up the probe lens on the arm, and this is the shot I'm most excited for because I planned for this one to be the transition, right? We transition into the top of the can, and in my mind, this should feel like an FPV shot. Really, we're trying to make this can feel huge, and to do that, we're gonna use a probe lens because it just allows us a perspective that isn't achievable with a normal lens, right? We're putting a 24 mil in a very small space, and it's gonna make the can feel really large, and then we're gonna come up the side and push down into the top of it. This can shot was so important to me going into this one. It was the one I was most excited about. We have the swirling liquid that's gonna go, and also the firework transition dive. There's all these elements playing together, and if we can nail this in studio, I know we're gonna be able to nail this in post-production. One of the motors is not working on the probe lens, so our AC Philip over here, he's about to pull this manually, which is one of the most insane pulls I've ever seen. And it took us try after try after try after try. I think we tried this thing like 30 times, and he was just in, out, in, out, in, out, because the camera comes up and then it dives in, and his focus plane is changing so fast. I see it, we nailed it, it's good to go, let's call it. Currently we're setting up for the fridge shot. We ended up just ripping the back off of this fridge. We're gonna be using the probe lens again. We didn't wanna take it off from the last shot, so we're just gonna keep things rolling here. This shot was really interesting because we set it up and I looked over at Ben, our DP, and I was just like, something doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel premium. It doesn't feel like we have a nice light on the cans. It feels a little cheap. And he was like, I agree, 100%. Maybe we attach some of these lights to the inside of the fridge here. And we just put lights on the top of the fridge, and I mean, just look at it. It looks so much better. Just being able to see that kind of edge from the inside. It feels like the lights are on, right? It's actually great. And it still keeps that mood, but yeah, this makes me so much happier. This shot was pretty simple for the most part. It was really just getting the timing down. We had our AD, Charley, step in and put on some tape to kind of mimic Jake Paul in the gym and reach in, grab the can. And so in my mind, we have the shot of Jake Paul opens the fridge, hand goes in from the back of the fridge, and then ultimately in VFX, we're gonna rebuild the back of the fridge component to kind of give us something to push through and make it more dynamic, as if we're like coming in, just like that original shot of the USB-C cable going through. Things are running pretty tight, not gonna lie. We've got about an hour and a half left until we need to wrap, and we have a handful of shots to grab with this cooler and the different setups. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little on edge, but I've got confidence. We can knock this off, we'll make it happen. We have no time to waste at this point, so we need to get one more shot with the bolt, but instead of putting the camera on it, we're actually gonna put the light on it. And so for this shot, we're gonna flip the script, we're gonna attach a light to the bolt to actually rotate around the can, and then have the camera be stationary. And so we just ran really quickly through every color of the can. Here's a red one, here's a green one, here's a yellow one, here's an orange one, just knocking them out one by one so that we have options in post if we need to trade out the color or if we want to do a transition between the two. I feel good. We're on to the last shot now. We're bringing in the cooler and a fish tank, and essentially this is supposed to add on to the NIL footage. When our athletes open up the Yeti cooler, they're gonna reach in and we'll see the product, right, this essentials cans, but also I want to do this really interesting shot from below. This is going to be an all hands on deck effort to make this happen, but we are down to the wire here. We've got 30 minutes before we need to wrap. All hands on deck trying to get these cans to work, and they're just kind of floating randomly, and everyone's holding onto one. We've got the camera from below. We've got 40 gallons of water directly over the Alexa 35. This to me was one of my favorite moments of the shoot because yes, it was rushed. Yes, all this stuff was happening, but everyone was in it. There was such a flow, such a momentum going on. And when you get everyone working together so seamlessly, it doesn't matter that I'm directing. Like, I can hold a can. It doesn't matter if someone's ACing or ADing. What do we need to do to pull this off? And, you know, being able to be resourceful, making sure that we got everything that's done the right way, right? The AC's like, no, hold on. It's got to be this way. We got to make sure it's this and that. Like, I love when people go out of their way to make sure that things look how they need to. So this for me was a really special moment in the shoot. We're all hands on deck. We've got 30 minutes before everyone's got to wrap, and it's like an hour drive home. Such a successful shoot day. We've got all the VFX transition elements we need. I'm feeling good, so we'll wrap it up.
All right, let's cut. Guys, that's a wrap. Well done.
Back home, we got everything we needed, and you know, this isn't always the case on every project, but on this one, I had the opportunity to take on the edit and direct the VFX side of things as well. So, you know, I've got a pretty lengthy VFX background just as far as compositing and some light 3D work. This was a chance where I could really put my skills to the test and take everything that we were thinking about in the beginning of how to combine these transitions and tie them all up in a nice pretty bow and ship it out. When it comes to VFX, every project is different. No matter what you know in a 3D software, what you know in After Effects, what you know in Cinema 4D, you always have to learn something. And to me, that's one of the most exciting parts because I don't know how to do these things, right? I have no idea how to make a fluid simulation. I have a rough understanding of Cinema 4D. Let's take a stab at it. Let's see what we can actually do here on how to combine these motions. So my weapons of choice are Cinema 4D, running Octane render, and After Effects, right? After Effects is gonna be for just the final compositing. And what I did first was I went and built out a rough structure of the edit before diving into VFX. I wanted to see what the rough timing was, like especially for that diving shot. How long does this fluid sim need to be? How long do we actually need to be in the can before we're outside of it? What's crazy is that technology is no longer the bottleneck. We have access to YouTube, we have access to ChatGPT, we have access to forums, Reddit threads, anything we need to actually make our work happen. I went and played around with the motion of the dive into the can and overlaid my references on top of it. So it's like, okay, this is how it should feel, here's how it should kind of time out. And I realized, okay, this is the amount of frames, this is the amount of time I need in Cinema 4D to have a proper fluid simulation. But we went to do the one thing that we've always done, YouTube. How to create a fluid simulation in Cinema 4D. Watched a few videos. Like, I think what blows my mind is that we're all like 15 minutes away from learning a new skill. Obviously, you gotta have some intuition. Obviously, you gotta kind of like meet yourself where you're at. But ultimately, like, look, you just watch this thing for 15 minutes, figure out how to do this. Oh, okay, interesting. He's using particles. This is going around in a circle, and just he's pushing a camera through it. Got it. Okay, cool. All right, well, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll just watch the tutorial again. So anyway, just locked into it. Went super deep, and here we are. Here's kind of our first take at fluid simulation. And right off the bat, I was like, okay, this looks good, but it needs to feel more fluid. Watch some other YouTube videos. How can I actually get this to feel like liquid, right? How do I need to texture this the right way? And making sure all my export settings were dialed. And it's insane. Here we are, running Octane, rendering out on a Mac. And if we want to, we can just send this to a render farm if we're actually trying to do this the right way. It definitely took a lot of trial and error of just testing, you know, how does this feel? How does the fluid come down and spin? Because essentially it looks like a plane and we have the fluid spinning inside of a cylinder and we're using like artificial gravity basically to pull the liquid down and then let it spin. And all we need is just a second or two that we can tie into the can because it's pretty dark, it's pretty moody. You know, you go into the top of a dark can, it's gonna look like you're plunging and submerging into the liquid. And then the last part of this effect was going in After Effects and being able to position the plane of our FPV shot underneath the can so it looked natural. If I was really going crazy, I probably would have match moved this shot and then moved to the camera position. But with this one, I did it by hand and I actually got pretty good results off the bat. So I just tweaked it from there and then tied everything together. Just color corrected all the elements. Here it is, splash goes in. We technically have a point where we completely change our orientation from the 2D plane of our plate into the fluid sim shot. And then it's basically just a mask coming into the next shot. Be resourceful. There's so much out there to learn. And I don't know how to do all this stuff. I'm just learning it as I go. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? It's, hey, what can I make with what I have in front of me? We have the luxury here to be able to spend at least a day or two on this and make it look great. And the same thing with the fridge shot. All we need to do was go find some 3D models online of a fan spinning kind of like a computer fan and put it in the back of our fridge shot. And we did the same approach here. No idea how to do this, no idea how to texture these things properly. Oh, what are we using? Let's just find some Octane materials. Okay, let's go find a 3D model that we can use. Okay, let's use this. And then basically putting all these pieces together, making sure the motion matches. And I think for this one, I actually went into After Effects and did a bunch of point tracking or like the 3D tracker and then imported that scene into Cinema 4D. So I had a plate that I was looking at and then essentially just exported on an alpha mat so that everything is transparent below it, and then just composited it together, just overlaid the two shots, right? So it's like we have the camera moving through the fan, and then it's just the original shot. I mean, these shots were incredibly fun to take a stab at. I'm incredibly excited by what the team was able to pull off. Shout out to everyone at Bluehour for backing this production, and Brad for connecting all the dots and actually making this happen with Celsius. This is one of those projects I'm really excited to take what I learned here and apply it to other things. Now I feel so much more comfortable going into a set with an arm and product shots and just seeing how everything connects. No matter what it is, how big or how small the production, you have a handful of constraints, whether that be your resources, your time, your budget. There's always something to be learned. These constraints aren't just limitations, but one of the best parts about any project, allowing us to grow, innovate, create new ideas, and learn new skills. For now, I'm gonna get back to it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.